No other place to start than with the Georgia Alabama game. This game needs no hype already. Like by itself, the hype around it is through the roof. So for the game to surpass the hype, it shows you how good that game actually was. I guess let's start with the first half. That was the worst half of football I've ever seen Georgia play. I mean, from the offensive side to the defensive side, the defense looked like they had no shot of stopping Jalen Milroe. From the very beginning to the end of the second half, it just looked like there was no shot. And then you had the Alabama defense playing with their ears pinned back. It looked like we couldn't get anything to go through. It just was a full debacle for Georgia there. So one of the issues I had with the offense is those first couple of drives with Alabama, you saw, and I think they got the ball first too. You saw how dominant they were and how the defense just, I mean, they were just get into those edges and running. I mean, it seemed like every play was a big play. And so if I'm on the offensive side, I would much rather us implement the run much more and try to maybe slow that pace down to one, give your defense some rest, and two, limit Alabama's possessions. Because if you're concerned, I mean, it didn't take very long to see that there was some concern on that defensive side, and Jalen Milroe was just having a field day. So let's keep the ball out of his hands as much as possible. Make sure our defense is rested, and try to put together some drives. The thing with passing is it's such a 50-50 thing almost every time, unless you're, and the way they were playing, even the short screen passes, the easy passes seem to not be working. And so I think you kind of got to just calm down. You're on the road, slow the pace. Let's get to we have a strong running back with Trevor Etienne. I think just slow the pace a little bit, get some yards. So now you're not sitting at 3rd and 10, you're sitting at 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 on down is a lot better than on the road with 100,000 fans screaming and Alabama sending an all-out blitz just to, it just looked like it was going all bad. So I would have much rather them run the ball a little more and maybe try to slow that pace down. Instead, Georgia came out gunning, throwing the ball, and they were testing those young that young secondary, and there wasn't much happening there. So I think we had one drive in the first half where we put it together and were able to score. But other than that, that was the only highlight of the half. And then the second half, I remember it getting, when Georgia got 15, I don't remember what the exact score was, 20, maybe 28-15. Defense was playing much better. I mean, it was night and day in that second half with the defense. Defense was shutting it down. They weren't letting them get to those edges. Jalen Milroe looked very much contained, and the defense started looking like Georgia's defense. And then Carson Beck started to look a little more like Carson Beck. And 28-15 is where it started to say, like, I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but I'm like, this is a one possession football game. And so that's where, you felt the momentum start to change. And again, Georgia's defense was playing well. I think we had another drive there where Carson Beck fumbled, and our defense was still able to hold Alabama to just a field goal there. And eventually Georgia came back and tied it all the way up, took the lead. We got the score we needed, and we ended up taking the lead with that electrifying pass to Dylan Bell, who I love so much, man. He's so electric. And that is when everybody is going nuts. I am screaming at the top of my lungs. I am just like, oh my gosh, we've come back. and it's 2 minutes left in the game. I'm thinking, man, this is a big defensive possession. Besides that field goal with which we gave to them with the Carson Beck fumble, I'm thinking, we stopped them here. Oh man, we could close them. We could close this game out and sneak out with a win in the most historical college football comeback of all time. I am like, oh my gosh, but I am also aware that we're only up by like a point. So let's see. And it didn't take very long. It didn't take long at all. One play, we've all seen it. Bomb pass down to Ryan Williams, and he did his thing after that. There's not much to say about it. It is so interesting with Alabama. Obviously, their two star players are Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams, who I just still can't believe he's a 17-year-old doing this. I feel that they have this rawness to their game. I described it as like backyard football. Like they are just super athletic, and obviously they have the fundamentals here and there, but it's their raw talent. Like Jalen Milroe's just electrifying speed. Ryan Williams just innate creativity and shiftiness, agility to kind of make that catch and stop on the dime and spin. And it was just like, this is how like we play in the backyard. So that was something that stood out to me, just kind of their rawness and just innate ability to kind of make plays. When he makes that play, I'm thinking, okay, we still have 2 minutes, and our offense has been unbelievable in the second half. So I'm saddened by the play, but I know that we still have time, and it's not over. So our offense did exactly what they continued or what they've been doing previously. They go all the way down the field. We get to the red zone. It is 1st and 10. And again, we've seen the play. I don't know if he was trying to get a back shoulder or what, but Carson Beck throws it up, kind of a 50-50 ball to Colby Young, and it gets picked off. And I watched that play a bunch of times. I just don't think that Colby Young saw the pass when it was in the air. When you look at the play, the ball is in midair, and Colby Young is still running towards the back of the end zone. But the DB immediately saw the ball out of Carson Beck's hands. And so Colby Young sees the DB stop, like he was just a second late on every reaction, and he wasn't even able to contest the pass really. Because in that situation, you tackle the DB. You get a pass interference call and live to fight another down. But I just don't think he saw it quick enough, and interception and that sealed the deal there. It was heartbreaking right there. I mean, to come all the way back to make this a game, and then to get into the red zone there with a chance to have a walk-off touchdown win, because I honestly think Kirby goes for 2 if we get in that end zone. I think you put all your chips on the table, get that 2-point conversion, and go home with the win. But he threw a pick, and in the moment I was furious. I didn't understand why Carson Beck made the pass. I didn't understand why the receiver didn't contest, but obviously just within the passion of watching the game. So as a Georgia fan, I am upset, of course, that we lost. But it's hard not to be a little proud about what we did and were able to accomplish with that comeback. 28 down in the first quarter. I mean, this was embarrassing. It was looking like it was getting ready to be 70-10. something crazy as the final score, because I mean there was just no sign of Georgia giving any resistance to Alabama and Jalen Milroe, and we fought all the way back. It was absolutely unbelievable. Where does Carson Beck go from here? This was the best and worst game I've ever seen from Carson Beck. Throughout the whole game, he just made some terrible plays. He looked rattled. He looked unprepared for the moment. He was making the wrong reads, making poor decisions. I mean, everything you don't want a quarterback to do, he did. He threw 3 picks and was responsible for a fumble that gave Alabama an additional 3 points and threw the game sealing interception. But in the moment, I'm thinking, man, I hate that he threw that pick, but we're not even here if it wasn't for how great he played. Georgia was 5 for 5, 6 for 6, something like that on fourth down conversions. I mean, when we needed it the most, before we even get to the pick, to even get down the field, to have a chance, an opportunity to take a shot at the end zone, to answer the question of where does Carson Beck go from here, I feel like, and my hope would be, that this gives him that swagger of, I'm Carson Beck. You guys remember the Kevin Durant thing? Like, I'm Kevin Durant. I hope this gives him that swagger and that confidence. Because, yes, you looked rattled and you looked uncertain for a majority of the game. But in the biggest moment, in the biggest environment on the road, you led your team all the way back, making big play after big play after big play. If you can do that in Alabama, in that type of primetime game, 100,000 people watching, you can't tell me that. Who else is there? What else is going to shake you? That was a playoff environment. That was a championship environment. Hostile environment, really, because at least in the championship, you get a neutral site. I hope this gives him the confidence that he needs to play like that number 1 draft pick that he was expected to be coming out of this season. That Heisman candidate that everybody was expecting from him in this season. For the majority of that game, he looked like neither. But by the end of the game, I felt like he grew up. And you know what they say? You learn more from losses than you do from wins. So I think this is strangely a positive for Georgia and Carson Beck here. And I think this is gonna wake him up. And I hope we see a mean, locked in Carson Beck that we saw in that second half. So that's my hope there. And then for Georgia as a team, we're coming off of the 1-point win against Kentucky. And then we had the bye week. And then we play Alabama and looked inferior. Much more inferior. And then we look like Georgia again. We have Auburn this weekend, and they're coming off of a close game against a ranked team, Oklahoma, and Auburn always typically plays us tough. But I think that, again, big loss, but the resilience and just what it takes to even come back and be competitive in a game like that, I feel like that's going to give this team a boost of momentum and, again, a confidence and a swagger of, like, we're Georgia. Y'all got to come see us, not the other way around. I feel like Georgia played with a kind of a timidness, like we're number 1. Let's see if we can sneak out of here with a win. Let's just play good enough. And you saw how Alabama came out. They came out like, man, in the pregame, they over there clowning on Georgia. They over there with and these are freshmen. These guys, most of their team don't have this just um laundry list of experience on the college level or big games like that. They look more confident than ever. And Georgia came out like, ooh, let's see if we can compete. Well, we were the favorites. And so that is my hope for, we talked about Carson Beck, but Georgia as a whole team. I hope this gives us that momentum boost that we need and we start playing like that number in front of me, number one, even though we're no longer number one. But I hope we start just playing like that. So I do think, again, a close loss, heartbreaking loss, but I think this will be a good boost for us. And then who's going to beat Bama? Let's actually take a look at their schedule. They look serious. They look like a tough opponent. And again, they did give up the big lead, but they have some electrifying players on that team. So they had the Georgia game. They're past that, and they have the Vanderbilt game coming up. I think both of these teams do have trap games here. Alabama at Vanderbilt coming off that type of win, getting all the praise that you can get. Who cares about Vanderbilt? We come in here and stomp them year in and year out. But Vanderbilt is a 2-2 team this year, and again, not suggesting that they'll beat or even compete with Alabama, but Alabama has to come in there ready to play a football game. And same for Georgia. We have Auburn at home. You don't want that heartbreak hangover to go into the next game. You want to come in there focused and with a dominant mindset for that game. So they have Vandy next. Then South Carolina, tough team. South Carolina does play them in Alabama, but tough team. And then they got another big matchup against Tennessee at Tennessee. So they'll have their fun with the road test there, and really their first legitimate road test. That'll be a fun game. And if I'm not mistaken, that's on October 19th. When does Georgia play Texas? October 19th. Yeah, I think this was the weekend everyone was talking about, like I'll miss my wedding for. Yeah, that I see. So yeah, this is Tennessee could definitely compete. Unsure about Missouri. They've looked up and down a little bit, but again, number 9 ranked team in the country. They could beat them. And of course their LSU game should be fun at LSU, and then Oklahoma later in the season in the Auburn game. So they have some tough matchups, but if they're playing like they played in that first half, good luck anybody beating them. We'll get to the polls, but I think they look like the best team in the country, and they have all the weapons, specifically Ryan Williams, that you can ask for, and Jalen Milroe just shows why it's so difficult to play against him. He's such a running threat, and he has a respectable arm, and so it's just he's a tough matchup. He gives headaches to teams, and just a very tough beat. So yes, that was hands down game of the year. Again, my team was on the losing side, but I can take myself out of it and look at it for what it was. Classic. I mean, we're talking about Texas, USC, Vince Young, Reggie Bush type of game here. This will go down in history. And don't be surprised if these two teams see each other again in that college football playoff. I do believe that they'll still both end up making it. and we'll see how it plays out. So that was game of the year, Georgia, Bama.